for their diligence and hard work when the wildfires first began, putting their lives on the line, and for some of them, even as their own homes were destroyed and their own concerns for their families set aside. Many of you who are from LAHAINA have asked for assurances that you will be able to return to LAHAINA before we begin any part of the cleanup phase. After the EPA removes hazardous materials such as oil, car and lithium batteries, pesticides, paints, and solvents, building inspectors will then make a determination on the safety of the structures and the immediate environment. Following that, property owners and business owners will follow a process to gain access. I want to share that we are working towards a return to LAHAINA phase for residents and businesses to enter the restricted zone area just as soon as it is safe to do so. Your safety is first and foremost. We will be launching next week a website designed specifically to give daily information on how to re-enter the Lahaina town area. This will give residents and business owners the ability to visit their property. It will also have information on personal safety requirements. There have also been concerns about the oversight of the county's Emergency Management Agency. Following the resignation of Herman Andaya, we introduced the public to our interim administrator, Darryl Oliveira. He brings with him extensive experience as a former fire chief and former head of Hawaii Island's Emergency Management Agency. His time overseeing the response and recovery following catastrophic Hurricane Izelle's impact to Hawaii Island will serve Maui County well. Darryl started this week after relocating from Hilo. My team and I have been deeply and heavily focused on response decisions and activities. In the past 24 days, I have not spent time looking back in detail and instead have put energy on day-to-day needs and supporting evolving response efforts. But I do want to clear up misinformation and misunderstandings about what occurred in the early days of this disaster. There has been a heightened interest in what my team and I were involved in. Due to the impending weather report, we held a meeting in the EOC on Monday, August 7th, and it was decided by MEMA that we should go to partial activation starting at 9 p.m. that evening. 2 MEMA staff were staying at the EOC until the next day. I was alerted by Maui Emergency Management Agency staff in the early hours of Tuesday, August 8th, that a wildfire was occurring in the upcountry area. And I reported to the county's Emergency Operating Center at around 6:30 a.m. I was aware that Herman Andaya, who at the time served as the administrator of the county's Emergency Management Agency, was on Oahu attending a scheduled emergency management meeting or conference with officials of HAIMA. I was also aware that Herman was in touch with his staff who were in the county's Emergency Operating Center, and that a plans and operations officer within an incident command structure was present from MEMA. Members of my team were also present in the EOC. The early hours of the disaster unfolded with our emergency responders facing conditions that were made extraordinarily difficult with high wind, falling debris, including utility poles, and a rapidly advancing wildfire. Updates from our police and firefighters were provided by radios carried by personnel dispatched to the EOC from the police and fire departments. I and key members of my staff, the Managing Director, Chief of Staff, and Chief of Communications and Public Affairs, remained at the EOC, some until the next morning. The severe gravity of the impact was not clear in the initial hours, as our firefighters and police on the ground placed all of their efforts and actions toward helping people in the affected areas. As the evening of the first day came, the horrific effects of the wildfire in Lahaina became apparent. At that time, the degree and magnitude was still unknown as the situation unfolded. I had learned that there were many of our own emergency crews battling conditions and working to help our community in the midst of the crisis, who themselves had lost their homes, and prayed that their own families were safe. And those are individuals that were working in the EOC at the time, not in the field. I became aware of fatalities on the morning of August 9th, which I shared with the Lieutenant Governor's team. The realization that we had lost lives was devastating. There are no words that can adequately describe the depth of sadness and the shock of realizing lives had been lost. It was difficult to fathom the magnitude of the destruction at that time. On the evening of the fires on August 8th, I instructed our Corporation Council attorneys to complete an emergency proclamation, which I signed at around 8 p.m. that night. As we worked through the day at the Emergency Operating Center within the first 24 hours, I dispatched staff to assist in expediting the opening of emergency shelters at the Hannibal Tavares Community Center in Pukalani, the Lahaina Civic Center, which was later moved to the Maui Preparatory Academy due to the fire, the Kihei Community Center, which was later moved to Maui High School due to fire conditions, and at the War Memorial Gym in Wailuku. In the first 48 hours, members of my staff launched distribution hubs in West Maui, where an estimated 70,000 pounds of food, water, and supplies were brought in for immediate relief. That supplemented the tremendous work our community did on their own as well to immediately help where help was needed. Hundreds of volunteers stepped forward daily within the first 20 days of the disaster. Well over 3 million pounds of water, food, and supplies have reached the West Maui and upcountry impacted areas. Within 72 hours, the county began 2 days of delivering fuel to Lahaina until Ohana Fuels could reopen. While it could not meet the high demand for fuel, it was an immediate response that the county could provide. In the days that followed, and with the kindness of so many community-led efforts that came forward, support for those affected in both the upcountry and West Maui areas began to pour in. As of this week, the county, in partnership with Hawaii Food Service Alliance, mobilized and delivered 3 million pounds of food and supplies to those in need in the upcountry and West Maui areas. This effort, paired with an extraordinary community effort, provided much needed relief. Whether it came from an individual kindly offering a bag of groceries paid for with their own money, or large-scale efforts, every donation has mattered. Community-led hubs that we saw springing up in neighborhoods, parks, businesses, and nonprofits across Maui came to life, giving relief and care to anyone and everyone in need. Our state and federal governments are providing tremendous amounts of support, and our local community, businesses, and organizations have been the soul of our dark days. Our council members, Tamara Paulton and Yukile Sugimura, have been at the front lines of resources and support since day one. We have the unwavering support of President Biden and his cabinet, Governor Green and his cabinet, Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, our congressional delegation, and our state legislators as we make our way to recovery. Our primary focus has been and will continue to be providing support and relief to those affected. What will come at a later time will be a thorough review of the disaster that the county will certainly cooperate with and be participating in. In the weeks ahead, and for the long journey we will face together, my team and I will do everything in our power to support the families who have lost loved ones and leverage all we can to bring support and help to our island. Many of you on the Lahaina side know my mom, Edna Nakoa Bissen. She worked at the Pioneer Inn for 17 years with who became her second family. Uncle John Delatorre, Uncle Sam Puhala, Auntie Katie Nahina, Ardell Kaupuiki, Joan Lake Farron, Auntie Harumi. Those were the people that we grew up with from Lahaina. Many of you know we are not from Lahaina, but our Kukahiko family is. We are not of the west side, but our Nakoa Ohana is. And so we grieve along with you. As a son of Maui, with Ohana also affected by this tragedy, I want to assure you that we all champion our community's interests, our historical significance, and our cultural heritage. We will be tested as others try to divide us and even turn us against each other. However, we can be steadfast in working together, and in this time of onipa'a and lokahi, our strength is our care and our compassion for one another. So I say to you, let aloha kekahi guide us through this moment in our history as proud people of Maui. Mahalo and malama pono.
That was Maui County Mayor Richard Bissen providing information into the deadly Lahaina fires and even getting emotional there at the end, as you saw. The mayor says they're launching a website next week on how residents and businesses can return to Lahaina. It'll also have information on safety requirements. The mayor reiterates he and his team have been focusing on responding to the devastation and taking care of day-to-day needs rather than looking back in detail at the timeline of events.
And the mayor also providing more of a timeline than what we've known previously. He says officials held a meeting on Monday, August 7th, the day before the fire, where MEMA decided to go to partial activation starting at 9 o'clock that evening. 2 MEMA staff were assigned to stay at the Emergency Operating Center until the next day. The mayor says he was alerted by MEMA staff early Tuesday about a wildfire in the upcountry area around 6:30 in the morning. He says he was aware that Herman Andaya was on Oahu for a conference and that Andaya was in touch with staff on Maui. Updates from firefighters and police were carried via radio, the mayor says, and his managing director and chief of staff and chief of communications remained at the EOC until the next morning. He says he became aware of fatalities on the morning of August 9th, which he shared with the lieutenant governor. The mayor also saying 3 million pounds of food and supplies have been delivered to communities in Maui. And if you'd like to listen to this full address, we'll have it posted to our website, KITV.com.
Former Maui Mayor Alan Arakawa is speaking out in defense